guys, Jay here. Welcome to Eons of Battle. I have about 10 games of Warhammer 40,000 under my belt. I have been enjoying the spit out of this game, and 10 games is more than I've played in the last many years, and that wasn't in that long of a time span. But getting back into this game and getting into the new Warhammer 40,000 10th edition, there is a whole bunch of stuff I really have been enjoying about this game, and a few things I really haven't, and I want to get into those today. The first thing I really like about the new system that is 10th edition is how leaders attach to units. It fundamentally changes how all of these models work, and I am absolutely here for it. Leaders previously have always been in kind of a weird spot where they're kind of attacks, and you're usually just looking through your codex to pick which one is the absolute best beat stick, or which one of them is the absolute cheapest where I can kind of just buy it and ignore the tax that HQs are in this game. All of them have all sorts of utility and can attach to different types of squads, and so all of a sudden I'm building up quite a pool of characters for my armies so that I can change up my style of play and buff certain units and make them even better or give them different abilities on the battlefield. I really enjoy it. Ancients giving better objective secure, apothecaries giving, just bringing a guy back to life and giving better buffing to their weapons. The different leaders all having their different abilities, and sometimes I don't even worry so much about what the character does in terms of like how good is his sword, how good is his gun, over what does he do for the squad, what does he bring to the table. I really like it. It's opened up, now I actually read all of the leader data sheets instead of just looking for the absolute best one. I really like it. It changes the game a lot. And speaking of changing the game a lot, this might be controversial, I like the change to the points system. Now, before you flame me alive, I do get that it is causing some problems at the moment, a little bit, but I really like it. Almost every unit, it doesn't really matter what special things you take. A power fist and a squad of intercessors versus a better bolt gun on an intercessor sergeant, it doesn't really change the squad that much, and it was so annoying to one by one purchase war gear for every single model in your army. It was just a bummer. It was just annoying. It often didn't change things. There's only a few units in every codex that really don't work well. Like a fully kitted out Lehman Russ with Demolisher Cannon, multi-melta sponsons, and a las cannon is very different to a very cheap Lehman Russ. And I think the easy fix for that is just to add more data sheets. They've done this for some units like the Tau Crisis Suits or the Tyrannid Warriors, where they just have two different profiles, one for the close combat special weapons and one for the ranged special weapons. I think that is an excellent way to handle it, and it makes list building so incredibly easy that I'll actually do it. I do think there's probably something to be said because I know like tournament players or people who play at a very competitive level do really miss the point system because it probably was slightly better for balancing, but for just playing the game, it doesn't matter one bit. A Shoot-A-Boy Orc squad versus a Slug-A-Chop-A-Boy Orc squad are pretty much the same thing, and I think I just like adding them to the list as opposed to figuring out every single possible option. I really like it. I'm finding it a lot of fun. And speaking of having a lot of fun, the random secondary mission deck. One thing that I've discovered about myself with miniature war games is I have so much fun charging and fighting and shooting, and my eyes glaze over in the setting up the game system. It's just boring. It's just boring setting up the objectives, setting up the terrain, finding the mission. But the secondary mission deck is so much fun. You just have this deck of cards, you don't know, like you know what's in the deck, but you don't necessarily know what's coming or when, and then you draw two cards and all of a sudden, there's another game for me to play in the game. Ooh, I've gotta kill something. Ooh, I've gotta get into the middle objective. Like, and then getting those off and scoring the points feels so good. I really like how almost all of the missions, the actual victory points for scoring objectives doesn't really turn on until the second, third, fourth, and fifth turns of the game. So those turn one secondary objectives are so important. And it's so much fun that they're random. I haven't played with the static secondary missions yet, and I don't know if I'm going to. It just seems lame to pick at the start of the game. And it also is just much quicker, where the setup phase, instead of reading through and picking your secondaries, I take the green deck and I hand you the red deck and we're ready to start playing. The secondary missions are really, really fun. Sometimes you just get perfect pulls and you're like, I set my army up for killing and I am pulling all of the kill something secondary things. Or sometimes you did a really bad job setting up your army and it's like, oh, I'm already on the back foot, but I'm really, really good at moving and I keep pulling move and get on objectives. Really, really like the objective deck, and it's actually making each game of Warhammer 40,000 feel a little bit different and more fun. 10 games in, they've all felt fairly different, and some of them have been the same combination of hamburger, hot dog, or a skew, the same secondary mission abilities, but they've all felt really, really good. I particularly like the catch the servo skull, where you have to kick objectives around. That one's great. I love when you actually interact with the objectives. I've played other games where the objectives are always the same and always static throughout the course of the game, and that makes it feel very gamey. But kicking an objective, or in like Kill Team where you can actually pick up and move objectives, those sorts of things are really, really fun and add a really great element to the game that's not all about killing. You actually have to go and stand somewhere. Another little thing that I really like about the game is hills and battlefield debris grant cover. So it's really, really easy to get cover, which is great, and I don't use nearly enough of it in my games, but just having everything get cover just helps so much to balance shooting versus close combat, because shooting is always typically better than close combat, just because you don't have to move, or you don't have to move as much. For close combat, you have to get there, and that can be an absolute struggle, and just having some of the smaller pieces of terrain grant cover helps so much. And it just makes the battlefields look a lot better to have a lot more smaller, prettier pieces of terrain. You know, we all like our L-shaped walls and crushed and like destroyed, ruined buildings, but you know, barrels and rubble and little piles of hills and dead bodies, all of those sorts of things add a lot of fun flavor to the games and to the actual look of the game. And it's really nice that they actually add something to the game as opposed to just cluttering up the board with this pretty terrain that doesn't do a whole lot. And the last thing that I am absolutely in love with is the idea of detachments. I play the Space Marines in addition to so many other armies. I play the Space Marines, and so I sort of have access to like 6 different detachments right now, and it's awesome. Detachments are a way to actually build your army. I feel like Games Workshop has kind of been working their way up to this. I particularly remember in 7th edition when you had the detachments, those were not good because you just took a list of models and then you got a whole bunch of free buffs that were way too powerful, and it kind of broke the game, especially for the Necrons. But now detachments are just special abilities that you kind of tailor your army around. If I'm playing my Space Marines, there is a big difference between the generic one out of the Space Marine Index and the Black Templar one. The Black Templar one is like, oh yeah, I'm bringing nothing but troopers. I want to fit in every single close combat weapon I absolutely can to take advantage of the special abilities. It's something that you can actually build your list around. Where previously I would always build around certain units. Like if I actually want to bring my Centurions for a game, I have to build everything else to facilitate that. But now I'm building it all around this one particular ability. It's the flavor. It's the flavor of a unit. The Black Templar special ability is paprika, and I have to build my dish around paprika. It's really, really fun, and I'm really excited for the codexes to come out and we get more detachments, because I also think it's a great way to bring in some of the micro factions of the game, like Harlequins, Militarum Tempestus, all of these little tiny factions that probably should never have been their own standalone faction, Sisters of Silence. All of these things could have their own special detachment to kind of let them be their own army while still having access to all of the other things in the index. I think it's a really, really good way moving forward for 40k to actually exist, and I also think it facilitates the ability to have more types of units. Like Orc Beast Snaggas versus Orc Boys. Like Beast Snaggas are kind of their own thing, and back in the day they probably would have been their own army, but now I can envision it in my mind that there's gonna be a Beast Snagga detachment that's gonna help you to build an army around the Beast Snaggas and make them even better, while still letting just generic Orc armies have access to the Beast Snaggas. Everybody gets to play with their toys, but everybody gets to have it their way. I'm really, really excited about detachments. Now, as much fun as I've been having with Warhammer 40,000, there's a few things that have stood out to me as things that I don't particularly care for, and I do hope that they get fixed somewhere down the line, hopefully sooner rather than later. I've been playing a lot of games against the Imperial Guard, specifically like Parking Lot Guard, a bunch of big tanks with indirect fire in the backline, and indirect fire is a bummer. I have no idea how you balance indirect fire. In theory, there is a balance to indirect fire in that if you're shooting at something that you can't see, you have -1 to hit, and whatever you're shooting at is granted cover. But there's no stipulations that say that you can't add buffs and abilities to turn those negatives off, and in fact even get better. So all of a sudden you have some of the best shooting in the game is shooting anything in the game. You know, if specifically like the Basilisks, their guns with Lord Solar Leonidas, you can be firing indirect fire, hitting on 2s, re-rolling 1s, ignoring cover. It's brutal, and there's no actual way to stop it. I'm never really a big fan of rules that ignore key components of the game, and indirect fire literally ignores all things in the game. Line of sight, movement, like all of these things, they should come back in some way. And I don't know, they increased the points cost of every single thing in the game that had indirect fire, and I don't really know if that fixes anything because it's still punishingly powerful. And if you raise the points cost even more, then you probably just wouldn't take it. I do think indirect fire is a nice ability that should probably just be really, really limited. How do you limit it without, because right now army creation is you can take whatever you want, which I like. It was frustrating before when you had to take like a leader, 3 squads of troops, and then you had access to like your elites, your heavy supports, your fast attacks. I do like being able to build these weird lists of whatever I feel like taking that day. But then when my opponent gets the same freedom and then all they take is indirect fire, it makes for some really, really punishing games. I think maybe if something has the indirect fire ability, nothing else can modify its rolls. I think that would be fair. Some of these guns are already pretty good. So just anything to stop it from getting even better, or like in the Imperial Guard's case, just auto hitting for the most part. Yeah, indirect fire is punishing, and I think the real problem with it, because it's not bad to have really powerful guns, but really powerful guns that your opponent has no ability to stop in any way, that's a bummer. And speaking of being a bummer, tanks got tanky. Holy moly. Like toughness 11, 12, 13, 14 is incredibly tough. And all of a sudden, so many things that I'm just used to, melta-bombs, melta-guns, las cannons, power fists, all of these things that I'm like, yeah, those are the things in my army that I use to kill vehicles. They won't kill a vehicle. They won't even come close to killing a vehicle. It's scary when all of a sudden the Leman Russ is walking towards you and you're like, heck yeah, I throw, half my army at it and nothing happens. Tanks are brutally, brutally powerful. And kind of another thing that I was thinking about is how do you fix it? Because it's cool for tanks not to just explode. I remember the good old days of 6th edition when every single time anything happened to your tank, you'd roll on the damage chart, and I would always roll in immobilized or destroyed. Every single time, my tanks were tissue paper. And so it is cool for tanks to feel big and tanky, but I think some of the more standard issue weapons in the game maybe need to be brought up to deal with it, and the perfect solution I think would be the anti-weapon ability. However, I think there's a problem with the anti-weapon ability, and that is anti-X, like usually anti-2-up or 3-up or 4-up, anti-vehicle, anti-infantry, anti-psyker. On the roll of that number plus, you are dealing critical successes, a critical wound, and that can be overpowered if it stacks with any other buffs or benefits. It's just way too good. I think it was almost a perfect rule. It just makes you a little bit better at hitting the specific thing that you should be hitting at, and you have to play the game good enough to get into a position where you can use that gun against that specific target. If it was just a roll of this plus is a successful roll, I think that would have been perfect. And it would have given Power Fists, Thunder Hammers, Meltas a really, really good chance against vehicles, dealing some serious wounds, probably not one-shotting it, but being able to do a really, really good job. But as it is, this last cannon's hitting on 5s and 6s. It's just not gonna happen. You can't count on it. And it's really, really sad. It's just, your last shots are just bouncing off of these tanks. And it feels like the solution to it is just, you have to bring the big, giant, scary tank that can threaten another big, giant, scary tank. And so you kind of have these two battles going on. You've got all of your normal units fighting all the other normal units, and then you have these Titan models just smashing into one another. I don't want vehicles to get toned down a little bit. I just want other things to be brought up a little bit. And I think the safest way would be if anti was just a little bit of a less punishingly powerful ability. I think that definitely need to play around with a little bit of the weapon damage abilities, and I think that that would be easy enough to do, especially with just how the now to hits are built into the actual stat line of the weapon and not the model itself. So it's easy to change these sorts of things around. Hopefully all of this stuff should be really easy to change because Games Workshop has been embracing technology a little bit. And that brings me to my third gripe. The app isn't free. Games Workshop, whenever I open the app, like every single day, you hit skip and then you go to your list building and it says you have access to this for a limited time. Why make it limited? How much could it possibly cost to keep this app running? It's ridiculous. And now we've all experienced PDF indexes. We've all experienced the app. It all runs like clockwork. It's great. And then you're gonna take that away from us? It's absolutely crazy. And it's just dumb. Like literally the Army Builder app is like a shopping cart. Like, ooh, let me put together a Tyranid list. Ooh, you know what? A Biovore would be really great in this list. I don't have one. Maybe I should buy one. Like, it only is a good thing to let people really easily list build and enjoy your game. And it's crazy to lock it behind a paywall and then also come out with codexes. Like every single day, I'm just like, is Games Workshop really gonna do this to us? Are they really gonna take the app away from us and have us go back to pen and paper? Like, it's just wild. Like, Warhammer 40,000, I would say right now, is in the best place it has ever been. A decent app is still, like, the app could be a tiny, tiny bit better, but it's really good compared to the old app. And I do prefer it to things like Battlescribe. Just let us have this app. Let us have the PDF rules. Let it all work together. And then what's great about it all being digital is it can all update instantaneously. If they wanted to take my idea and fix the anti ability, then they could just, oh, let's have the anti, instead of generating critical successes, just normal successes. Boop, boop. And then it changes on the indexes and it changes on the app. It would all be lovely. Games Workshop, don't do it. Let us have the app. Let us have the digital rules, please. It's just so lovely. It's so lovely. When I went to Adepticon, I was playing Kill, like just random pickup games of Kill Team, and I had everything with me. I had all of the books. I had the iPad here with every single rule in the game, but everybody just whipped out their phone, and in a second, they had Wahapedia up and they knew everything. Like, that's what you want. You want it to be really, really easy. Games Workshop, let it remain really, really easy. I've really been enjoying 10th edition. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'll figure out how to beat Sean and his indirect fire. And I've been playing on the terrain available on our Patreon. Over there, we have a brand new STL terrain board every single month. And this month we have the Corpse Starch Factory, a grim, dark, industrial manufacturing plant making food for the people of the people. We also make extra episodes of Eons of Battle, and we have a tier you can get your name on one of my Black Templar Space Marines, and you can join the crusade. Every game of 10th edition I've played so far has been at 1,000 points or Combat Patrol, and so I think it might be time to move all the way up to 2,000 point games. My games have been ranging about, well, it depends on how fast I lose, but usually an hour to 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. I'm a little scared about how long a 2,000 point game is gonna take to play. Thanks for watching.